Hello, role players. This is Cross. What I'd like to talk to you about today is my Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaign. This is journal entry number 7. We started off at the campsite, the what was essentially the campsite of doom, so to speak. This campsite is laid out in a way that informs the players of a lot of different things. It was women were violated, people were killed without mercy, things were stolen. So these are the tools that I use to inform the players and the characters of what they were going up against. They had bows and arrows. They had their throats slit. This is giving them clues on what kind of weaponry that they're using. So, and then to what extent are these particular bandits? What extent are they willing to go to? So, we had Jonathan awake, and so basically, what's going on is I set up a storyline. What if? Okay, so the entire idea was born from the fact that I wanted some guy, the party to come across this scene, and some guy to wake up and be a revenant. That was the whole. Everything stemmed from that point, both going forward and backfilling information. So that's a good technique for you to use in designing your stories. What is your major plot event? In this case, it is them seeing a bunch of dead bodies and then one of them waking up and being this revenant. So there's this moral question of what exactly is this party going to do with this information, right? Make your story as if the players are not involved. A certain party could accept him. Another party might kill him. There's a bunch of different variables that could happen along the way once you introduce this scenario. And that's what's important. It's everything is based on what exactly are you, what scene are you trying to set up, and allow the players to resolve it. Don't resolve it for them. Don't say, okay, he's going to wake up and then they're going to accept him and then he's going to take him here and then they're going to do this. And then, okay, if you are filling in all this information for your players, why are they even there? Why are they even there to make any sort of decisions? Let them make the decisions. Your job is to tell them what's going on. Start with that point and let them make the choice on how they want to handle it. Don't force them into making their characters make this decision and messing with the RP that they want to do in this scene. Okay, they could lop his head off and I'm going to keep on going with my story. There could be consequences for doing that, such as Jonathan knew exactly where the bandits are, and that was the key thing. This can influence your decision if you give them some piece of information. He blatantly says, I know exactly where all of them are. I know where all of the ones that did this to me are located. So that means also that he might not know where all the bandits are. He only knows where the ones are that killed this camp, basically. Okay. So his information could be very exact about those people, but not exact about other things. And we get into that later on in the session. So this is just a good solid way of allowing your players to kind of reach more of that sandbox. You're kind of on a one way or the other kind of thing, and there's a lot of in between. So you're either all sandbox or you're all railroad, or kind of a mixture of both. I tend to do a mixture of both. Sometimes you just need to railroad the players a little bit. You just kind of nudge them in a certain direction. But ultimately, it's their decisions that got them on those rails to begin with. And sometimes there's just nothing that you can do to avoid a certain thing from happening. It's just that's just the way things are. Um, so these are the few techniques that I use. So we move on. We have a combat. Jonathan leads them directly to a hunting group, and they're able to kind of fight those guys. And this is where I reveal that Jonathan knows that there are, I believe I said there was exactly 4 guys here. That's what he says. There's 4 over there. Well, there was a lot more than 4. And that's because not all of these guys was involved in that attack on the camp. And that's a good way of understanding exactly how these things work. They had a few wolf sort of pets, more like slaves. You know, they were sort of mistreated wolves that that I eventually put into the story. Well, let's be real. I just wanted some wolves in the fight. I wanted some humans, and they had some pet wolves off to the side. That's how that all started. Well, Melindra decides to cast Animal Friendship on one of the wolves. And one of the things, so it fails its wisdom saving throw. That's point number 1, okay? And in the text of the spell, it said, you show that the wolf, you show the animal that you mean it no harm. And I read that text and I was like, okay, this wolf, it failed its wisdom saving throw, so it's kind of affected by the spell. How do I want it to behave to this spell? So I generated a backstory on the spot for this wolf, and started filling in information as I needed to basically make the spell work. He rolled really low on his wisdom saving throw, so I made it work better. I designed a scenario where it would work better, and it's now walking around with the party. Great. So now they have a cool animal companion. They're having fun with this. She's having fun, using speak with animals and kind of talking with the wolf, finding out it was a circus performing wolf. Again, I didn't have all this information written down. You just kind of come up with something and just run with it, and once you're out of the session, so between sessions, then you can start filling in, okay, let me actually come up with something based on what I said during this session. Now let me actually generate a backstory for this wolf, because clearly it's going to become important. They're going to ask. So after this combat, which was a very hard combat, by the way, Jonathan takes them to the camp. So what's the purpose of Jonathan? And that is to sort of test the moral boundaries of the group a little bit, to show them to these bandits a direct path. You're not going to get lost. He knows exactly where they are. But the other thing is now he's taken them to the bandit camp. This is their hideout. Well, as he's walking along, he's saying one by one, they're dropping dead, until he gets to the camp. He gets to the cave, turns around and thanks them, and vanishes, because the last one that was on his hit list dies. So something else is killing the bandits. And once the last one falls, his mission is complete, and he vanishes and returns to the afterlife. That's part of being a revenant. So that story is now told. We get into the cave, and there is a single will-o-wisp that they have to encounter before they go deeper into the cave. Now, that fight, while a fairly easy one for this group, it did crit and one-shot Araski, but, she was fine. It did exactly her max HP. It was nowhere near doing double her max HP in damage. And I think it crit one other time. I was rolling really good on this thing. But the purpose of that was to show them first off, storyline wise, it made sense for this one to be on its own. I'll explain that in a minute. Second, it was good to show them the strength of this individual one. First, they now know that they can kill it, and that it doesn't have a whole lot of hit points and stuff. Once you get around its high AC and its resistances and stuff like that, they can kill it. Now, that was a clue. It was a combat, but it was also a clue. The player Air's Key has a book. She has a physical book that I made detailing several undead. And they're realizing that there's an undead out there. So one of the new homebrew undead, which I'm revealing tonight, is called a Luna Wraith. And the goddess Luna, during the eclipse, saw a bunch of women being abused and killed and tortured. And she decided to reach down and grant them a new opportunity to seek out revenge. During this time, Luna had been betrayed by, as far as she thought that she had been betrayed by Sol, her husband, so to speak. And she was just lashing out at the world. She blotted out the sun. She cast Sol out so that summer wouldn't return. And in her, when she had dominance over the world, it was winter time. So there was there was this period of just endless sorrow, so to speak. And the world itself was breaking apart because of it, so much to the point that the world broke apart and started bleeding and creating these well springs that the people were able to drink and be sustained as long as they got a drink from it once a day. And this, in my storyline, is where the spell Goodberry comes from. Druids were able to kind of harness that a little while longer. So all that to say that these creatures are born from very violent end to a woman's life, and her body is desecrated and left out generally throughout the night. Now, generally, more so this happens during the full moon, and it happens even more during the actual winter months. But for storyline purposes, this happened to Jonathan's wife, Lizzie, who was violently assaulted and then killed at the end of everything. And her life, and then her body was left out to be washed by the suns, or washed by the moon, so to speak. And so this is what happened. Her spirit was raised as a Luna Wraith. So violent end. There are will-o-wisp about. So all these different things are clues for that player to realize that this is a Luna Wraith. And she finally got the final clue when she inspected the bodies of these bandits that she had killed, and there were burn marks on the bodies, and that's the final clue to basically reveal that it's a Luna Wraith. And that's where we are, because initially I had planned for the Luna Wraith to be sitting in a room, very World of Warcraft style, like this is the boss room, so to speak. And while they were in the map, I was sitting there looking at it, and I was like, there's nothing else for this Luna Wraith to do. Or why would she just sit here? It doesn't make any sense. So then I started moving her around in the map, and she heard them talking. And so she waited, and she sent 3 of her will-o-wisp around another corner, and she was waiting on the other side. So basically they had a choice. If they went down one way, they were going to fight the 3 will-o-wisp. If they went down the other way, they were going to fight her. And so they went down the other way. and they saw her. The first person she sees is Varen. It's important to note that lunar wraiths absolutely hate men. That's their function. So first person she sees is Varen, and that's where, right before initiative was rolled, is where I concluded the session for a kind of cliffhanger thing. Let them stew on it a little bit, and there's been a lot of hype over the past week on what they're going to do, and it's because you can't just look at a monster's manual and find this creature. They have no idea what I've designed. Eris Key and her book, she has some clues in there, and her character has kind of looked at this book a lot, but maybe the player hasn't. So it also gives the player a really good opportunity to brush up during the week on her own time and kind of get the player knowledge where the character knowledge should be. And we're going to see what happens with this fight. So that happens in a couple hours. And we will see you guys next time and see what happens in episode number 8. See you guys later.